Good morning, everyone. I hope that you have recovered from the high drama of last Sunday evening. Yep, me neither. And I hope that you're ready for the exciting lifting of restrictions tomorrow, if they happen as we think they're going to happen. Now, obviously, these are strange times that we're living in. But the fact is this, God is good, and we're going to spend this morning coming to him, listening to him, learning from him, meeting with him. Now, if that wasn't enough to whet your appetite, the other good news today is that we have a very special guest host today. Jude Ayton has been doing work experience with us as a church this week, and he's been serving with some Emerge stuff and some Sputnik stuff and some website stuff and some video stuff, and he's been doing such a great job. We didn't think it was right just to keep him lurking in the shadows, but we wanted to get him to host the whole of Raw Church today, and he kindly agreed to our proposal. So without further ado, can we give a big Church Central South round of applause with whoops and all sorts to the host with the most, Jude Ayton.
Good morning, I'm Jude. I'm a member of the church youth group Emerge, and I'd like to welcome everyone today to our Raw Church gathering. Whether it's your first time watching or your 100th time, Raw Church is a way for us to gather together and get to know God more. But if you aren't gathered with anyone, we pray that today you draw near to God and that he draws near to you. Now we're going to have some questions pop up on the screen and a few minutes to discuss them.
Now you bring me to a higher place and lift my gaze. I see heaven surrounding me. I will not fear, even in the darkness. You hold my hand always. I will not fear, for you are with me. So I will lean that in all things you're true, ageless one. I will trust you to the end. Yes, I know that in all things you're good, faithful one. You're the rock on which I stand. I will not fear, even in the darkness. You hold my hand always. I will not fear, for you are with me, and I will lean on your promises.
Now we will have Wayan and Wazy leading worship. We will put some questions up and give some space for you to talk about them. The reason we worship is to thank God for all he's done for us and to show him our love for him. Now, if you don't want to sing, don't worry. But you can focus on the words and kind of what they mean to you.
You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, you're working in this place. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, you're working in this place. I worship you, I worship you. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. You are here, touching every heart. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, healing every heart. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, you're turning lives around. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, you're mending every heart. I worship you, I worship you. You're the waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. You're the waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. You wipe away all tears, you mend the broken heart. You're the answer to it all, Jesus. You wipe away all tears, you mend the broken heart. You're the answer to it all, Jesus. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. You're the waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Even when I don't see it, even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working.
Welcome back. Now we will hear from Rich. He will be continuing our series on Psalms and learning how to abide in Jesus. We have a talk each week to help us understand what God wants for us and to help our understanding of God's Word.
Psalm 66, the New Living Translation. Shout joyful praises to God, all the earth. Sing about the glory of his name. Tell the world how glorious he is. Say to God, how awesome are your deeds. Your enemies cringe before your mighty power. Everything on earth will worship you. They will sing your praises, shouting your name in glorious songs. Come and see what our God has done, what awesome miracles he performs for people. He made a dry path through the Red Sea, and his people went across on foot. There we rejoiced in him. For by his great power he rules forever. He watches every movement of the nations. Let no rebel rise in defiance. Let the whole world bless our God and loudly sing his praises. Our lives are in his hands, and he keeps our feet from stumbling. You have tested us, O God. You have purified us like silver. You captured us in your net and laid the burden of slavery on our backs. Then you put a leader over us. We went through fire and blood, but you brought us into a place of great abundance. Now I come to your temple with burnt offerings, to fulfill the vows I made to you. Yes, the sacred vows that I made when I was in deep trouble. That is why I am sacrificing burnt offerings to you. The best of my rams is a pleasing aroma, and a sacrifice of male bulls and goats. Come and listen, all you who fear God, and I will tell you what he did for me. For I cried out to him for help, praising him as I spoke. If I had not confessed the sin in my heart, the Lord would not have listened. But God did listen. He paid attention to my prayer. Praise God, who did not ignore my prayer or withdraw his unfailing love from me.
Psalm 66 that you've just had read to you is, I don't know if you call it this, a song of passionate love for God, of enjoyment of God, of celebration of God, of devotion to God. It is an exuberant, exhilarating praise song, a joyful song, a song that makes you smile when you sing it. Some of you would probably hate it. So much so that if you had the music today in your headphones, it would be upbeat, it would be celebratory, and it would get your feet tapping and your hands clapping and the crowd jumping. And we know that because it's full of words like joyful, sing, shout, songs. And it's meant to be played so loud that verse 1, all the earth will hear it. And verse 4, everything on earth will join in. It is not the song of someone who reluctantly obeys God, or the song of someone who joylessly turns up for God, or who dutifully joins the marketing team for God. It is the song of someone who passionately loves God, whose heart has been grabbed by him. And I don't know if you know this, but having your heart grabbed so that it passionately beats with love for God is actually the most important and primary call on your life. Jesus summed up the whole of the Bible by saying that the most important commandment was love the Lord your God, and everything else flows from that place. When sitting down to do an appraisal in the book of Revelation with the church in Ephesus, he, like any good boss, commends lots of positive things that he sees, lots of good feedback. He commends their effort, their sacrifice, their doctrinal orthodoxy, their perseverance. But the thing that was lacking, that displeased him, was that their love had gone, their hearts had gone. They didn't love him. And whereas the Pharisees had everything right on the outside, so much that Jesus called them whitewashed tombs, very presentable and clean on the outside, but under the surface it stinks like death. Yet in the complete opposite way round, as Johnny reminded us last week, when Jesus speaks to Peter, who is a person who is a total mess in so many ways externally, and is interviewing him to see if he can commission him and trust him as a leader in the early church, Jesus was willing to be incredibly patient and gracious with his staggering self-importance, with his pathetic tendency to compare himself, with his very recent history of violent knife crime where he slashed someone's ear off, with his emotional fragility so volatile that it makes Rich Pitt look like a composed, stoic person of stability. Jesus can work with all of that because the one interview question he asked Peter was, do you love me? And even if your outside is a mess, if you love Jesus, then he can work with you. See, our love and passion and devotion to God is the most important thing in the world. But here's my question. What about when you don't feel any love for God? What about when you don't have any passion for him? What about when Psalm 66 isn't the song that you want to sing? What about when your love has grown cold? What if you've never felt any love for God? What if it's something that you did feel, but it's waning and it's being choked by circumstances and pressure? What do you do then? Is there a way back to passion for God? In the language of our series, is there a way you can relearn love for him? How do you cultivate or recultivate a passion for him? And this is where Psalm 66 can really help us, because throughout the psalm, we see that this songwriter is not just one of those happy clappy types who's always cheerful. Actually, there is a rock solid method, strategy, principle that he employs over and over again in this song that leads him to passion and love for God. And it's very, very simple, but we so often overlook it. It's this, that our love for God is the result of looking to God. Our love for God is the result of looking to God. And that's what the psalmist does in this song. He's trying to lead himself and remember all of God's people who are gathered with him to have this wholehearted passion. And his great strategy, his great technique is that he fills his mind and his attention and his gaze and his vision and his focus, and thus the vision and gaze and attention of all of those he's leading with God. 40 times in 20 verses he focuses on God. Words like God, the Lord, are peppered throughout. And then if you add in words like you, yours, or your, referring to God, or his, he, and him, describing God, then 19 out of the 20 verses of this psalm are drenched with God. He knew what we need to know when our love is waning. That love for God is the result of looking to God. And we often forget this. Right? We often try to look inside ourselves to see how we're doing and to try and generate some love for God. And if we look inside ourselves and we find that things aren't looking great at the moment, it's been not a great few months in our relationship with God, then we just get depressed and we're tempted either to throw in the towel or to settle for half-heartedness or to become a hypocrite who pretends externally. And then we're back into whitewashed tombs and we don't want to go there. Or we look inside and we're doing quite well in the last few months. Did a few hours on the old 24 hours in prayer in the 40 days. Listened to a podcast every now and again. Bought a book, haven't read it yet. But yeah, going pretty well. And then we become those horrible, smug religious types who are pleased with their religious performance. And so to look in whether it's going badly or great is not the answer. We need to look up to God. Because love for God is not generated by us looking in. It's actually a response that comes, that flows, that happens in us when we see how great, how good, how glorious, how worthy of our love God is. Then love wells up and we end up loving him. 1 John teaches us famously that we love because he first loved us. Our love is responsive. And it comes from the overflow of his love for us. If it is, I'm going to say this in a few different ways to try and help us. If it is a dance, his love leads the dance. And our love is simply the steps that follow after his. If it's a tennis game, his love is the serve that comes over the net with all the power and all the force and all the magnificence that he throws into it. And our love is the return, where we put out a racket and it bounces off us. And of course it goes back, but it's not us who's got all of the power and the grace. We're just returning his wonderful, initiating serve to us. If it's a choral song, his love is the call and ours is simply the response. If we're on a walk on the Harborne Walkway, I don't know if any of you have done that, and you're in one of those amazing reverberating tunnels, his love is the resounding bellow that reverberates through the tunnel, and our love is the echo that responds. Last way of saying this, if we were a little baby, his love is the Father smiling over our cot, smiling at us, full of love, full of protection and responsibility, like a good father. And our love, well, we're just a little baby, we don't know everything, we don't know anything really, and yet when we see his smile, we somehow learn to smile back to him. We learn to love for the first time or again by looking to God. And so that's what we're going to do for the rest of this talk, and that's what the psalmist does for the rest of Psalm 66. He looks at 5 particular things about God that generate love for him, and we want to look at those before we're done. The first thing he sees is God's glory in verses 1 to 4. 3 times in just a few verses, God's glory is praised. It speaks of the glory of his name, how glorious he is, and how worthy of worldwide, global, glorious praise he is. Now, God's glory, it's a bit of religious jargon, it's quite hard to define, but in scripture it's used to describe God's godness, okay? His uniqueness, his radiance, his power, his holiness. It's how he is the most awesome being that exists, how he is other to us. He is stunning, he is radiant, he is glorious. It's how he's the God of whom angels in heaven are circling around him, and yet he is so glorious that even those glorious angelic creatures that we would be terrified of if we saw them, they cover their faces because they're so amazed at the glory of God. He is staggering, he is eternal, he is wonderful, he is glorious. How do you cultivate love for God? You look to him in his glory. You speak out and call to mind and remember that he is the glorious God. But that's not enough, because many religions believe in a big, shiny, intimidating, massive God. But in the Christian faith, there's much more to win our hearts. You want to see, secondly, God's salvation. Verse 5 says this: "Come and see what our God has done, what awesome miracles he performs for people. He made a dry path through the Red Sea, and his people went across on foot. There we rejoiced in him." He's honing in here on one very specific event, not just on who God is in his glory, but what God has done in, for him, the Exodus. This is a story that you'll know where God's people were stuck and lost and trapped, unable to save themselves by their own efforts. And after a Passover lamb had been killed to save them from judgment, God comes down, defeats their enemy, and makes a way to lead them out through the waters of the Red Sea, out of slavery to new life on the other side, no longer slaves, now God's chosen people heading for the promised land. And that is like the high point of the Old Testament, and the psalmist retells that story again and again and again, because he knows that if you can remember that you have been saved, then you will sing. And if we have become followers of Jesus, we don't only have to look back to the Exodus, as great as that is, we have a far greater salvation to recall, where we were stuck in our slavery to sin, lost, trapped, unable to save ourselves by our own efforts. And so the Son of God comes down in Jesus and dies as our Passover lamb to save us from judgment. And he defeats our enemies of sin and death and makes a way for us now to come out through the waters, not of the Red Sea, but of baptism, to new life, so that we, now no longer slaves, have a bright future as God's people heading for the promised land. And recalling our Exodus, our salvation, what Jesus has done for us, has power to recapture our hearts again. You don't have to look inside yourself and try your best to be passionate. Look out to how he has saved you and watch your heart catch up. I love this quote from Richard Sibbes on how to cultivate a soft heart towards God. He says, as when things are cold, we bring them to the fire to heat and melt, so bring we our cold hearts to the fire of the love of Christ. Consider we of our sins against Christ and of Christ's love towards us. Dwell upon this meditation. Think what great love Christ hath shown unto us, and how little we have deserved, and this will make our hearts to melt, and be as pliable as wax before the sun. If thou wilt have this tender and melting heart, if you want to love him, then be always under the sunshine of the gospel. That is a better motivation for spending some time with God in the morning, isn't it? Not because you should, but because it is sunshine to melt our hearts afresh. Call to mind God's salvation. Thirdly, call to mind God's faithfulness, especially in hard times. Now, when we're going through hard times, we often assume that they're going to be the things that cool our love for God. And perhaps we know those for whom that has been the case. And so we want to cast our minds away from the hard things in our life or live in denial so that we can cheer up and be good Christians. But that is a massive misstep and a cruel irony, because in this psalm, he doesn't cut out the hard times, but writes them in to the song that's going to get put in the Bible. And all the way through verses 8 to 15, he retells this story of hard moments, testing moments, battles, moments when God felt like he was absent. Because when you then come through those moments and you remember how God led you through and how God was your God even in that darkest place, then your love for him rekindles to a whole new level. Verse 12 sums it up really well. We went through fire and flood, but you brought us to a place of great abundance. If you're struggling to love God, don't just try hard. Remember those dark moments in your life where he has been enough for you. I tell you what, I have never felt in a church meeting closeness to God like I did in the darkest night of my life, when some of the darkest things that have happened to us were happening. That is the time when I knew the closeness of God the most. And when I recall that, I tell you what, my heart starts to love him afresh. Next, the psalmist looks to God's kindness to us. Most of this psalm is spoken collectively to us. It speaks of declaring and reminding and recalling the mercy and grace and goodness of God to the whole community. Shared memories of God's kindness, shared experiences of his grace, battles won together, journeys undertaken together. And so it's written in the we and the us. And the same principle can be true for us at Church Central South Kyneton. We can look around us and see across our whole church, across our family of churches, and in the individual lives of those we're connected to in community, we can see the goodness of God. Struggling are you to generate some love for God? Look around you to what he's done in the lives of others. But then, and we'll finish here, the psalm transitions from we and us to where it lands, which is in me and I and my, to concentrate not on his global glory or his communal kindness, but his kindness to me as an individual. Verse 16 says this, come and listen, all you who fear God, and I will tell you what he did for me. For I cried out to him for help, praising him as I spoke. If I had not confessed the sin in my heart, the Lord would not have listened, but God did listen. He paid attention to my prayer. Praise God who did not ignore my prayer or withdraw his unfailing love from me. There weren't only stories of what God had done for Israel, there were stories of what God had done for him. God wasn't just forgiver in general, he's the one who'd forgiven him. Not just the one who is love in general, but who had loved me. And when you hear that call again and you see it afresh, that Jesus Christ loves you. When you see the Father's smile over you, then you begin to smile back and relearn a love for him. Our love is a result of looking to God. And now you're going to do it. In your groups, you're going to have some instructions come up on the screen. I'm going to put those 5 categories, 5 things you can reflect on and recall about God, his glory, his salvation, his faithfulness, his kindness to us, his kindness to you as an individual. And I want you to worship him together. I want you to just pick one of those, whichever draws your eye, and call to mind some truths and then speak them out to God. Maybe it's his faithfulness in hard times. God, thank you that you were like this at this moment in my life. Thank you that you've not left me in this. Whatever it is, you go where the Holy Spirit wants you to go. But let this bubble up and speak out your love for him. Don't try and muster it up. Simply call to mind the goodness of God and watch your heart catch up.
Thanks, Rich. Now, Johnny will inform us on some important updates about what's going on kind of in the life of the church.
Thanks, Jude. Now, last week, Jonathan filled us in on the news that on the 5th of September, we will be meeting at King Edward's for the first time since the beginning of the pandemic. Now, I know, or at least I can guess, that news would have been met by different people in many different ways. From, on one side, wild excitement, to possibly on the other side something close to dismay, and maybe in the middle a certain degree of apathy as well. So my encouragement would be that if you have not seen the video that Jonathan did last week, please check it out, and just don't take that bald piece of news on the surface, because Jonathan really helpfully explains the reasons why we're returning to our old home at King Ed's in September. Now, my job today is to finish this meeting off by giving a bit more detail to that announcement, and giving you some news about some things that are happening in the summer and some things that are not happening in the summer, and also to present you with an ask for something to do before you depart on your summer hauls. So firstly, I want to talk about prayer meetings. Now, as a church, we have prayed more together over the last 15 months than I think we ever have before. Compared with our church prayer meetings pre-COVID, we have had more people at our prayer meetings each week, and we've done more than double the number of prayer meetings in that time than we normally would as well. Now, my maths can sometimes be a little bit deficient, but I think it would be fair to say from those statistics that we have done more praying, which is a good thing. And thank you so much for those of you who've pushed through the strangeness of praying on Zoom to gather with us so regularly to pray. It's been absolutely brilliant. Now, usually, in the days of yore, we would have taken a break from prayer meetings in every kind of school holiday, and we haven't done that over the pandemic, but we are going to take a break from church prayer meetings on a Sunday evening this summer, which means that tonight is going to be our last church prayer meeting of the summer. And my real plea to you would be, please join us tonight to pray. God hears us when we pray. Do you believe that? I'm taking that as a given, okay? Not just that, he doesn't just hear us, he acts when we pray, and he blesses us when we pray. And so my question to you is, what are you doing this evening from 7:30 to 8:30 that would be better than having an audience with your Creator alongside your church family? We'll hopefully then see loads of you there later. So firstly, that was prayer meetings. Secondly, Sunday mornings over the summer. Now, in the school holidays, we are going to continue with a combination of Raw Church and Central House for the summer holidays. And the exact combination of how that will look is unclear at the moment, but keep looking out for details. Now, the cool thing about this is that while we've done Raw Church and also Central House meetings for some time, from tomorrow, a whole load of new possibilities emerge, don't they? In your Raw Church gatherings, which so far have been 2 families or groups of 6, now they will only be constrained size-wise by the size of your house and the preferences of the group, which is a great new development. Also, when we meet in Central House, gatherings can be bigger too, and we can sing together, even if we don't have to go out to the car park when it's sunny. Remember also that time in the good old days when you were praying for someone, you could put a gentle hand on their shoulder when you prayed for them. The laying on of hands. Anyone remember that thing? Well, technically, we can do that again, I think. Now, what I'm not saying is that you have to sing or you have to have hands laid on you. As we've said all along, we're going to keep with the same tone. We're encouraging everyone to move at their own speed and to help others who want to move at their own speed. But even with that said, I think it's pretty cool that those things are going to be possible and that we can enjoy them as well. So secondly, that's some Sunday mornings over the summer. And as I say, keep your eyes peeled for more details on those ones. And the final thing I wanted to say was about Sunday services after the summer when we return to King Edward's. And here's where the ask comes in. When we do start meeting at King Edward's from the 5th of September, we will need everyone to muck in to make that happen. Now, practically, what this means is very, very simple. Kate has sent everyone in the church an email about serving on Sunday mornings, and the ask is really to read it and to reply as soon as possible. Now, technically, that email is from I Know and not Kate, so it's not impossible that it's landed in your junk mail. So please, if people could have a look for it, read it, and then reply, that would be really very much appreciated. Now, there may be specific teams that you would have a leaning towards, and some of the teams do require certain skill sets that some of you have and some of you won't. But my plea would be not to see this as I'm going to go away and pray what my calling is on a Sunday morning in the future of Church Central South. Praying's great, callings are kind of great in their own place too. But really the plea is not for that. The plea is, are you up for just coming and helping out make this happen with the rest of the church family? And while some of you might say, look, that team or that team, we'd love it if as many of you as possible could simply reply, but just generally saying, look, I'm just here to help. Put me where there's a space. If you can do that, that's really going to help us in our organisation, and also to ensure that we can all serve as a joy and it just doesn't land on just a few shoulders when we come back in September. Well, that's enough from me. Happy summer, everyone. I am going to hand back to Jude to close.
Thanks, Johnny, and thank you all for coming. We'll be back next week, continuing our series on Abide. Bye.
You are Lord of the battle, Lord over all, yet you came as a man and you suffered it all. You are risen in glory, your goodness abounds. You are mighty and merciful, faithful and true, and I'm safe in your hands. I know you don't walk away. You hear me every time I call. You hold me and say, you're all I need and so much